No, he's not banned. He can reply.
And we did see a bit of a turning point last week when a U.S. official said, following the weeks and weeks of provocations and the attacks from the Houthis in the Red Sea on these shipping vessels, that they were essentially giving the last warning, that there would not be another warning. And so given that we have seen these attacks and these provocations continue, in some ways, we were very much preparing for a different kind of response from the U.S. and its allies. Again, we haven't gotten an official word from the White House, but Wolf, as Oren was saying, given the significance of this kind of action by the U.S. In Yemen, we should expect to hear from the president in some way tonight. Wolf.
A very significant development indeed. Colonel Layton, you're our military analyst. These strikes certainly do carry a real risk of escalation right now. Give us your reaction.
Yeah, Wolf, the big situation here with these strikes is that, first of all, they are going to hit some of the targets. As Oren mentioned, Hodeidah, the main port in western Yemen, is a highly likely target. There are a lot of anti-aircraft and anti-ship missiles that are located in that area. As far as the escalation, the possibilities of escalation are concerned, what can happen here is that the Houthis are going to respond.
You guys want to know what my biggest L take was? Time for an admission. My biggest L take was in the beginning of this process. There were military analysts that talked about how there could potentially be a six-front war. And I always ask the question, what do you mean a six-front war? Like what, the Houthis, the people of Yemen are going to attack Israel? Lol, with what power? I said that, okay? I undermined and underestimated what the Houthis were capable of, what Ansar Allah was capable of, okay? I said at the time, they're starving. They just withstood a blockade and genocide, okay? I said it. It turns out these guys, they don't mess around. They mean business. They don't care. They mean business. They stood on that. Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't familiar with the Houthis' game. That's it.
Then make statements or put warships in the Red Sea to try to push back against the Houthis and make sure they don't threaten one of the world's most critical waterways. Again, that's what we're seeing here play out. The U.S. very much aware that there could be a risk of escalation with the Houthis, and because the Houthis are an Iranian proxy, you have to keep an eye on Iran to see their reaction to this, especially after the U.S. says they seized a tanker in the Gulf of Oman earlier today.
Yeah, very, very significant. Looks like this war, as I said, is escalating big time. And Colonel Layton, as you know, this aircraft carrier battle group has a lot of warplanes ready to go if given the order. What do you think? How likely is this next step going to be taking place?
I think it's highly likely, Wolf, and I think the warplanes that you mentioned, primarily F/A-18 fighters on board the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, they are going to be used to strike targets that are more complex than what you would normally strike with a Tomahawk missile. Some of the areas that they might strike would include radar installations. They will also probably go after some of the command and control nodes that the Houthis have. So that is basically what we're looking at here. I think, a lot of activity in the northern part of Yemen and in the western part, which are the areas that the Houthis currently control.
I want to bring in CNN's chief national security correspondent, Alex Marquardt. He's getting more information. Tell us more about the U.S. allies, their involvement in what's going on. Alex.
Well, Wolf, it was a major consideration in carrying out the military operation that we are now seeing unfold that the U.S. not do this alone. There is a belief that the British would also have a hand in this and potentially others as well. The U.S. really wanted to have global support when it came to retaliating against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. You have this coalition of 22 countries, Operation Prosperity Guardian, that was set up late last year in order to protect ships in the Red Sea. And then just last week, the U.S. and other countries warning of consequences to the Houthis if they continue to carry out attacks against commercial shipping in the Red Sea. That was a warning that was issued by the White House alongside 11 other countries. Wolf, there was a real sense that this was imminent as soon as that statement was put out. A senior administration official saying that there would not be another warning. We have seen several attempted attacks and attacks by the Houthis in the past few days, and here we are seeing the response. So as Oren and the Colonel have been alluding to, the question now is what do the Houthis do? What does Iran do in reaction to tonight's strikes? We heard from a senior Houthi leader just earlier today who said that they would confront America and make it kneel down. I've been told by numerous U.S. officials that it is clear that Iran's hand is clear in all of these operations and attacks that the Houthis carry out. So, of course, there's a real concern over what Iran will do here. I will tell you, the U.S. officials don't think that Iran necessarily wants to escalate and open up any kind of full-scale war or major front with Iran, but they're certainly eager to stir the pot. So what we're seeing here now is an attempt to de-escalate the situation, essentially give the Houthis a bloody nose and give them a message to back down and stop carrying out these operations.
America only knows how to de-escalate a situation by blowing up, like, actual soil. They're blowing up Yemeni soil.
And it comes as the Defense Secretary, Lloyd
That's what this
Austin,
fucking
is apparently
asshole
still in the
just
hospital. Update us on that and the connection, if any, to what's going on.
He very much remains in the hospital at this point. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has been there since January 1st, so 10 days and no expectation that he's going to be released in the coming hours,
love that.
perhaps not even in the coming days.
Guys, you don't understand. This is a de-escalatory bombing, okay? Like, this is a de-escalatory top-of-the-hour ad break. My goal is to de-escalate. Just kidding. I'm escalating the top of the hour ad break. However, you can subscribe and avoid it, regardless. That was an insane point of manufacturing consent, right? You saw that. I'm glad that you saw that. It happened in real time. What this will do is escalate. The Houthis will likely fire on all ships crossing in the Red Sea, possibly fire on U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia and UAE. Yes. And it seems like people are saying that maybe Iraq is also taking a hit. Like, our American bases in Iraq are being attacked right now. Our militias is what someone was saying in the chat. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see.
So there's
I'll get
new
confirmation from
development
that.
in the region. Very significant indeed, guys. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, thanks very much for watching. Aaron Burnett out front starts right now.
Out front next, the breaking news: U.S. airstrikes in the Middle East tonight. U.S. fighter jets right now striking parts of Yemen with Tomahawk missiles. We are waiting to hear directly from President Biden as the entire Middle East and the world right now are on edge. And more breaking news tonight: Trump's tirade, a judge shutting the former president down after an outburst at his fraud trial in New York. Could this be the beginning of the end for Trump's business empire? And Christie's hot mic moment that everyone's been talking about. We have the man who is on the other end, who was speaking to Christie on that mic. What else did he say? Was it really an accident? Let's go out front.
The Middle East this hour. A U.S. official telling CNN that right now the U.S. military is carrying out strikes with fighter jets and Tomahawk missiles on Yemen. Their target, Iranian-backed militia Houthis. And these strikes come after...
They keep saying Iranian-backed militia Houthis. Just say, like, the people of Yemen, man.
To be clear, these strikes in the Middle East are very significant. The United States is now finally taking action, and it could change the Israel-Hamas war into something...
We don't say America-backed Israel.
These have been relentlessly attacking ships in the Red Sea since November. Reports today of another attack, the 27th by the group in the area under 2 months, according to the Pentagon. Now, the Houthis are already vowing to retaliate to any strikes. A senior member moments ago saying, and I quote, "We will confront America, make it kneel down, and burn its battleships and all its bases and everyone who cooperates with it, no matter the cost." And as we said, a very significant moment here, the United States launching multiple strikes in Yemen tonight. So much to get to with this breaking development. I want to start with MJ Lee out front live outside the White House. And MJ, a tense situation tonight. It is, of course, the darkest hours of the night, just coming before dawn in Yemen.
and now a series of strikes. What are you learning?
Yeah, Aaron, we are certainly waiting for that official word from the White House on these attacks in Yemen against these Houthi positions. But U.S. official telling me and confirming that this isn't just the U.S. military, but these are actions that are being taken with other countries, including the U.K. What we should make clear is that U.S. officials have telecast in recent days very clearly that the situation in the Red Sea had become intolerable and unacceptable. And in recent days, U.S. officials had gone as far as to say that they were issuing their final warnings to the Houthi. So it was certainly expected that in the coming days, given that the Houthi provocations and the attacks had continued on these shipping vessels in the Red Sea, that some kind of a different response could be coming again from the U.S. And its allies. Now, striking in Yemen is something that the U.S. had hoped that it could very much avoid. This was almost a last resort situation, given that the U.S. is so set on trying to prevent the situation in the Middle East from escalating. They also just do not want to disturb the current truce in the Yemen civil war. But again, I think it's very much expected, given the gravity of the situation and the significance of this action by the U.S. and others, that we should be hearing in some form from the president directly later this evening, Aaron.
All right. Thank you very much, MJ Lee. And you heard MJ say in some form we should hear from the president later this evening. It is a grave and deeply serious moment and a significant development here. And as MJ said, indications allies involved. I mentioned that emergency cabinet meeting in the darkness of night in London, Rishi Sunak holding, and we do understand now that the UK was part of these strikes. Oren Lieberman joins me now from the Pentagon. And Oren, you're learning about the UK involvement. What more are you learning about these strikes tonight?
We've just learned quite a bit from a U.S. official about the types of targets that were struck here by the U.S., and we've now just learned the U.K. We have also learned that the U.S. strikes came from a variety of different platforms, including, as we've said, fighter jets and Tomahawk missiles, which are land attack missiles launched from the sea. But it's not just surface vessels. It was also submarines that were used in part of this attack, targeting 12 or more than 12, I should say, different sites in Yemen belonging to the Houthis. Those targets included radar sites, as well as storage and launch sites for ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs. That's significant because it's those three types of weapons that the Houthis have used to target international shipping in the Red Sea, obviously one of the world's most critical waterways. So the U.S. and the U.K. very much trying to send a message here that this needs to stop. We have seen, according to the U.S., 27 times where the Houthis have launched attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. At first, they were trying to target ships that had some sort of connection to Israel, either coming or going from, or part ownership. But according to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, which operates in the region, many of the last dozen attacks had no connection at all to Israel. The U.S. feeling compelled, because of the threats to international shipping, to set up Operation Prosperity Guardian and protect shipping in the Red Sea. But that was purely defensive. This obviously goes well beyond that. After multiple warnings to both the Houthis and to Iran, the Houthis.
Wait, what? I thought that was also defensive. I thought America only engages in defensive posture.
The UK feeling compelled to take action here. So
you
again,
said earlier that this was a bloody nose, a de-escalatory tomahawk,
as well as storage and launch platforms and sites for ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs, and the U.S. using not just fighter jets, but also surface ships and submarines to carry out what appears to be a broad array of strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. Aaron.
All right, a broad assault. Oren, thank you very much. And always important to note, 90% of the world's trade goes by ship. And these attacks have gone unanswered now for 3 months until this mass assault, this broad assault that we're talking about happening at this hour. Barack Ravid is our political and global affairs analyst, and retired U.S. Army Major General James Spider Marks also joins me. So, General, here we are, finally, 27 strikes on shipping, many of them U.S. ships targeted. The U.S. now tonight responding, hitting more than a dozen Houthi targets in Yemen. The Houthis, of course, an Iranian-backed militia, Iranian proxy, and coming from the air, coming from under the sea, coming from ships on the sea. Your reaction?
I think it's well overdue. The timing of this is important. The United States has previously been very, very precise in its attack against the Houthis. It's kind of been a tit for tat. This is an escalation, and I think that's appropriate. It's not an expansion. Look, there's proportionality, legal requirements that I think this would exceed, certainly at a minimum, would meet those prescriptions for proportionality. And you have to go after, as Oren has just reported, both the archers as well as the arrows in military terms. Go after the inventory, go after the capabilities, go after the leadership, go after the launch capabilities as well. That's what we're seeing right now. And important, the message needs to be there's no sanctuary for the Houthis where they are in Yemen. The only sanctuary that exists is within the border of Iran. Nobody's going to conduct operations across the border into Iran. But the Houthis need to understand, unacceptable, this needs to be a crushing blow.
Well, that's the crucial question, Barack. Is it a crushing blow? Obviously, there's a statement being made in the fact that there's
Bro, this is literally Israel.
UK's involved, and it's more than a dozen targets, and it's
They're about to
coming
be like, the Houthis are using civilian shields, and that's why we had to kill thousands of people in Yemen.
be received.
Well, it's definitely not a crushing blow. It's a beginning. It's a first step. You don't crush a strong militia like the Houthis with airstrikes on 10 targets around the country. They have a robust military infrastructure all over the countries with vast military capabilities, and they're going to respond. It's pretty clear. They said that they're going to respond. They will do it. And now the question is, how far will they go? Will they just attack U.S. vessels in the Red Sea, or are they going to start attacking U.S. forces in the region?
And General, that's the question here. So the statement from the senior member of the Houthis tonight, and this statement came just before we learned the strikes were launched. So there was anticipation that it was going to happen. You know, we knew about the cabinet meeting. We knew it was imminent. And then they happened. The quote, "We will confront America, make it kneel down and burn its battleships and all its bases and everyone who cooperates with it, no matter the cost." Now, of course, there's some bellicosity within that. But what are they really capable of doing?
Yeah, as you said, look, we're not surprised by any of that type of narrative that they would release. What we're seeing right now needs to be the first step in what must become a much larger type of engagement with the Houthis, or we're going to be here forever putting up with this. The planning that goes into these type of operations gets into what's known as an action, reaction, counteraction type scenario. So the United States and its allies that are participating have obviously gone through this. I don't see this as a potential snowballing out of control, or the United States and the UK wouldn't be there. There has to be able to be a very precise, as I've described, an initial crushing blow against the Houthis. And if they go after, and they've already indicated that they're going to go after U.S. forces.
Yes.
And there are other proxies that have gone after U.S. forces. So that's a given. We have to be able to put a lid on that.
The comment was made a moment ago, right, that there wouldn't be a strike within Iran, Barack, but that is the real question here, right? How will Iran react, right? The Houthis are an Iranian proxy. They are Iranian.
I love Aaron Burnett being like, can we attack Iran too, please?
An Iranian proxy, they're definitely Iranian-backed, but it's not clear that they are 100% Iranian-controlled, meaning it's not like an on-off switch that the Iranians can just tell them, okay, now you start shooting and now you stop shooting. Yeah. It's more complicated than that, and you have to add to that that for the Iranians, that's the best-case scenario, that the Houthis and the U.S. will have those skirmishes now, and the Iranians will sit on the sidelines and as if they have nothing to do with it. And obviously, the U.S. tried in recent days to send messages to Iran to stop the Houthis. It didn't happen. And I'm not sure the U.S. is ready at the moment to go after Iran in order to stop this.
All right, please stay with me, both of you. I want to bring in Jason Crow, the Democratic congressman, former Army Ranger, who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan and sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. So, Congressman, here we are.
I don't get why Axios reporter Barack Ravid is being asked about these questions.
The UK, we understand, against
you know what I mean?
This Iranian-backed militia. What more are you learning about these strikes tonight?
Hi, Aaron. Well, we're paying close attention to this on Capitol Hill. There's really three things going on here. The first is the president has the authority in the...
What's up, bro? Wait. Can you hear me? Ludwig is calling. Brother, America is currently attacking Yemen, and you're calling me in the middle of that. I suspect because you're doing a tier list or something. What's going on?
No. I didn't even know about this Yemen thing, by the way. I'm devastated, for starters. Second off, I was just wondering if you wanted to get dinner Saturday. I didn't even know you were live. I totally forgot.
Yeah, I do. All right. All right, bye.
Or that we don't let this escalate into a broader conflict, so that it's proportional, that it's controlled.
We're watching World War III.
We're looking very closely at what Iran is doing, and we're not creating an escalation here. Number three is Congress's role, making sure that this is a self-defense attack, that we're not being pulled into a broader conflict. I would not support us being pulled into a broader conflict against the Houthis. We should not be doing that. We just ended our nation's longest war. We should not be pulled into another one. So we have an obligation in the weeks ahead to conduct oversight on Capitol Hill.
You know, on the one hand, the Biden administration has been criticized for its tepid response, its lack of response to Houthi attacks, repeated attacks, more than 25 of them, right? 27, I believe, on shipping interests. On the other hand, you have the one of the chief operators of the Houthis saying, we will confront America, make it kneel down and burn its battleships tonight, as that statement coming out. Do you, Congressman, take that seriously? Do you think they have the ability to do any sort of an action that would cause?
What, dude, why is Aaron Burnett more serious than the congressperson? By the way, Elant News is right. Barack Ravid actually did provide better analysis than the fucking general did. It's still unique that, you know, you got a goddamn Axios reporter being like, doing commentary here, but like, again, the CNN reporter is always more reactionary than the most reactionary person.
That's why you have clear-eyed, smart, intelligence, national security professionals of the administration making sure that we are smart, that we have a proportionate response, that we are defending ourselves, but we're not escalating either. And that takes calculation, that takes intelligence, that takes the ability to look at the various streams of intelligence and risk that we are facing.
Chatters. Many of you always come in here when things are popping off and say, is this a distraction from this other thing? All of you, and just the general Western populations, basically has the attention span of a dog. You could just dangle keys in front of you and you would lose sight of whatever you were thinking about anyway. America doesn't need to start another front of war because of the International Court of Justice trials against Israel. No. They're doing this most likely because of what happened in Oman earlier today. Okay? They've been setting up for a counter against the Houthis, against Ansar Allah for some time now, due to, as Aaron Burnett correctly and I guess vociferously, bloodthirstily brought up, the 27 attacks against commerce interests. So there is no like distraction from one thing or the next. Okay? It is happening because of Israel, because of our endless support for Israel. Okay, that part is true. But the timing of this is suspicious is like my least favorite type of commentary.
A submarine that carried out these strikes. We have learned more about the submarine. It is the USS Florida, a ballistic missile submarine capable of carrying out and firing Tomahawk missiles as well. Those are land attack missiles, and that, according to a U.S. official, is what was used in this attack. What's noteworthy here is that, first, the U.S. rarely talks about where its subs are. They're a very closely held secret. So anytime there's a public statement about them, it is a significant statement. And this is the sub that U.S. Central Command announced had entered the Red Sea from the Suez Canal in early November. So we now have learned that this is the submarine that has been there operating in the Red Sea, perhaps not all of this time, but that was a part of this strike using the Tomahawk missiles that's capable of launching as the U.S. carried out a strike along with the U.K. on more than a dozen or so targets in Yemen.
So sick, our weapons,
now, too, we learn about the operations of a U.S. submarine as it relates to this very significant moment and this significant attack, Aaron.
Oren, thank you very much. And Barack Ravid, Major General Spider Marks are back with me in this significant moment with a significant attack, as Oren describes it, General. We've now learned that the USS Florida, that is the sub that was responsible for launching some of these Tomahawks. When you hear that and then releasing this information, sharing this information, saying the name of the vessel, what do you take away from it?
Well, attack subs, you have different manner of submarines. You've got boomers, those that are going to launch your ICBMs, your nuke capability. The Navy's never going to let you know where those babies are. The attack submarines, on the other hand, make themselves known. This is a very specific announcement by the Department of Defense saying we have capabilities, look at what they can do, very precise attack, and we're going to do some very significant bomb damage assessment in terms of what the damage was against the target. Was there any collateral damage as a result of that? And they'll alter their attack platform accordingly. This makes perfect sense when you look at all the array of capabilities that the DoD has available. They will use everything in their kit bag to make sure this happens.
And Barak, what's your understanding about the length of lead time they would have had to plan the time of this? And I say that in the context of, we know the UK is involved. We know there was a cabinet meeting, emergency all cabinet meeting a few hours ago in London, led by Prime Minister Sunak, but that this was done in coordination, right? There were so many targets. What's your understanding about what went into it in terms of planning and how long they knew that they were going to do this at this time on this day?
I think this strike was planned for at least 2 to 3 weeks. I think the White House was very hesitant when the Pentagon first brought the initial plans for a military retaliation to what the Houthis have been doing since mid-November. And U.S. officials told me in recent days that what was important to the White House was first to try and mobilize some sort of an international coalition so that it won't be seen as the U.S. going at it alone, or even the U.S. and the U.K. And behind the U.S. and U.K. strike are at least 24 other countries that are involved in this task force in the Red Sea, and that signed.
I predict by the end of this week, there will be a not insignificant coalition of Globe Twitter that unironically whitewashes the genocide in Yemen in the hands of Saudi Arabia and justifies it as they learn about what it is, really, because they didn't know what it was already. Yeah, Globe Twitter. You will see think tank Andes, like that one Syrian guy who works for the American Enterprise Institute, and all of the other dudes with like globes in their profiles, and people who fancy themselves to be like sock dems and whatnot, totally go back and play the Saudi Arabia's actions in Yemen story in a way that unironically says, yeah, it was actually good that they did that. Okay, European Union flag, yeah. Oftentimes it's like, it's always like some Slav dude too. It's always like it's always one of those like European Union countries that gets like dunked on by the rest of the EU. You know what I mean? Always an Eastern European guy with the most genocidal opinions, defending and riding people who think he's a dog historically. You know what I mean?
Their intentions very, very clear. Nor should we be surprised by any declaration by the Houthis or by Iran, which means Israel now is at greater risk. I mean, this isn't a black swan event. This is a white swan swimming in a pond of white swans. This is totally predictable. Yeah. This needs to be done, and we understand the cost.
Barak, I want to play for you some video that we just have in of one of these strikes. Bro. Well, we're going to get it in a moment. I'll explain what it is. When we get it, I'll play it. But we do have video coming in of a strike, Barak, north of Sana'a, of course, the capital of the Sana'a, Yemen, in the Sana'a province. So we're going to show that as soon as we get it. But that will show, here it is. So you go ahead and watch this, Barak, show that we actually have video of these.
Yeah, people are going to find out that the Houthis logo says like curse the Jews, and then they're going to repeat that too. They're going to be like, it's anti-Semitic. Why are you defending anti-Semitism? I knew the left had a real problem with anti-Semitism. I didn't know how bad it was. Clip it. You'll see. Every single person is going to literally run these talking points in the next week. They do not know any of these things right now, because they do not have a well-formed, informed opinion on the situation at all. You know, they're just learning about all of this now so they can hit you with talking points.
And you hear the dogs.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think what we'll have to see is how this looks in the morning. Meaning when the sun comes up, we will be able to see exactly what was hit, how big is the damage, and we will also know if there are any casualties among the Houthis. Just last week, The U.S. helicopters fired at some small boats that the Houthis sent to try and kidnap a commercial ship. 10 Houthi rebels were killed. And the interesting question to me is whether the U.S. Did this airstrikes on targets that had Houthi militants in them, or it was just empty targets that only had weapon caches or missile positions. And I think this is a big question, because this will determine
civilians.
What will be the Houthi response to this.
General Marks, what do you see in this video that we have taken from the ground in the distance, looking at, it's hard to say, right? It's multiple plumes of fire, looks like multiple explosions lighting up the sky. But what do you see when you watch this?
Yeah, to Barack's comment, that looks like these are secondary explosions. That's significant. Frankly, if there aren't any Houthi fighters co-located with where those ammunition depots might be, or some of their capabilities might be located, I'm okay with that. Let's get rid of all of their inventory so that they have a much diluted capacity.
I'm sorry, but like, that's a whole different country, man. Like, is it okay if people start blowing up like random parts of America because there's ammo depots there? Like, what are we talking about? You can't do that. Like, you're America, okay? You are the United States of America. You're like 8,000 miles away from this area. And you've decided, like, I'm going to blow up your weapons depot. Like, this makes no sense. Just did it, Bubba. I know it makes a lot of people's dicks hard to think like, oh, they're doing this and we're showing our might towards a population of people that we had been doing we had been genociding, basically, and not directly genociding, indirectly genociding with a regional proxy. Like, we outsourced our genocide of the Yemeni population to Saudi Arabia, okay? But it blows my mind. Like, it blows my mind that like Americans champion this kind of thing. You get no benefits from this, dog. They're not even doing this for your security. They're doing this to flex for Israel, basically. So it's additionally odd when Americans are like, lol, they're going to find out why we don't have healthcare. And it's like, bro, you really think that's chill? You just said it's cool that you don't have healthcare because America gets to aid and abet in genocide. Like, you think that's fun? You think that's a good thing? You just basically posted your L publicly. You are no different than like the dumbass hogs that we make fun of every day.
The scale and scope of the U.S. and UK operation here, and perhaps other countries participating as well.
Right. And important what you say there. We don't know other countries at this point, if so, who. And we also don't know, at least as far as I understand, Oren, correct me if I'm wrong, the exact number of targets. We know more than a dozen, but that's the description at this point. I just want to follow up with you on a couple points, and also with Barack and the general. But you talk about the specificity of these strikes, and it looks like those could be secondary explosions indicating that they had hit some sort of weapons depot or something along those lines, Oren. How good is the U.S. intel? When you're striking more than a dozen precise targets, it would indicate it is very
Why do you
good.
care?
Is that right? Do they feel that they really know where every single thing is there?
Certainly we'll get a better sense of that if and when we get briefed by senior administration officials, and then hopefully at some point U.S. Central Command, to understand how they knew what they were going for, how long they'd been monitoring it. The U.S. has known this is a potential flashpoint. It's also worth noting that because this is a multinational operation, the U.S., UK, and perhaps others, there is the potential of sharing intel, and that shores up what you're able to know and gives as many sort of input feeds into the intel picture as you can get. The U.S. has obviously worked sort of both on and off with the Saudis, as they had a years-long war with the Houthis. So there is certainly knowledge of the capabilities that the Houthis have, and that perhaps gave them a picture of where exactly the Houthis have it to know where to strike. Obviously, the U.S. has all sorts of other ways of gathering intelligence, from satellite to signals intelligence. So these are all feeding into the picture here. Yeah. And then in the course of the next hours and days, we'll get a better sense of what they hit, what they didn't hit, perhaps. Of course, intel is imperfect and it has holes in it and gaps in it. So we'll get a better picture of that. But these are all questions as we see the first videos of these explosions here.
And as we're watching this, when you talk about, we'll find out what they did hit and what they didn't hit. Barak Ravid, let me ask you about that, because you had indicated that even if we're talking about more than a dozen strikes, and I understand that that is not as precise as many viewers may want to hear, it's not as precise as we want more information, but that's what we have right now, that would, you didn't use the word tip of the iceberg, but you did seem to indicate that that's a little bit, there's a lot. Can you contextualize this as everyone tries to understand this war? This is a significant strike, it's a significant step, but as it could escalate, how much more is there?
Yeah, I think there's much more. Again, the Houthis are a well-equipped, well-trained militia. They have, I think, equipment that only several non-state actors around the world have. Maybe the other actor is Hezbollah in Lebanon. Both of them are supported and backed by...
Yeah, because they're state actors.
I think just an interesting update, because President Biden just issued a statement about this airstrike. And he said there's something interesting, that while the U.S. and the U.K. were the ones who actually conducted the strike,
they're the state actors.
They had support of several kinds of support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, something that we did not know.
People are always shocked when they find out that the Hezbollah literally has a party. Hezbollah isn't a state actor? I mean, it is. Hezbollah is. It is. They have fiber. They deal with matters of civil governance. Okay? They have fiber. I don't. Okay? I'm sorry. That's ridiculous.
There will be some damage that was absolutely spot on, and there will be misses in this attack, which means that you're going to be there for a while.
Yeah, there's a common joke in Lebanon. The Lebanese army is the second strongest army in all of Lebanon, referring to Hezbollah. Lol. Exactly.
That's important. And not every one of those needs to be a shooter. Look, when you have operations like this, you have folks that have to support, they have to watch your...
Same with Ansar Allah. Like, the reason why the reason why they say, oh, the Houthis or Ansar Allah sometimes, or like, and not Yemen and Yemeni state, is because a part of the reason why this conflict is occurring in Yemen, or the genocide that occurred in Yemen, is because the Saudi-backed government has been in contest against the Houthis, against Ansar Allah, which is part of the reason why they are saying that Yemen is actually not a state actor, except the Saudi-backed, they're an ethnic group too. The Saudi-backed state actor, on the other hand, is not even operating inside of the boundaries of Yemen. The Houthis are.
Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. That's part of this as well. It gives international legitimacy to the need to protect international shipping, and if the threat continues, to respond to that threat. And that's what the U.S. is trying to do here. Not start a war with the Houthis, but try to send a message that these attacks have to stop. It's a message not just directed at the Houthis, but also one directed at Iran, as we see them seize another vessel earlier today, according to both the U.S. and Iranian media. It is that threat to commercial shipping that has been one of the big goals here, because it's such a critical waterway. The U.S. was looking for, and as we learn now, got international backing for how critical of a threat this was, backing this action tonight by the U.S. and the U.K.
General, you've talked about how obviously there are threats to burn battleships and destroy, burn U.S. bases. Express that as a bit of hyperbole. And certainly we've seen, obviously, them launch missiles at ships, right, that have been repelled by U.S. air defense. But have we seen their full capability in the context of what we know and what Barak is speaking of, that they have the capability that they and perhaps only Hezbollah have as non-state actors?
Yeah, they have some tremendous capabilities. So we've seen those.
By the way, it's such a funny thing to conduct yourselves like this while you are doing quote unquote journalism. But like, does not a single individual that watches CNN ask the question, so why are these non-state actors blowing up ships and stuff? Like, why are they taking over ships? What's the reason? Is there a reason? Like, all it takes is a crumb of intellectual curiosity. If you think the Houthi did all the bombing ships because of Gaza, do you think North Korea bombing South Korean territory from artillery in last days was because of Gaza too, or is that just a coincidence? Brother, I'm sorry, but you are desperately trying to change the subject to completely irrelevant points. Like, one is directly a regional power player that is aligned with the group of individuals who they are demonstrating their might for. The other has absolutely nothing to do with Gaza. I don't know why. I'm sorry. I find it really strange that you think this is a good counter argument. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Bro, I swear, if you ask like the average Ansar Allah dude, or like a dude in Gaza, if you found like a dude that is a Hamas operative, like, what do you think about North Korea? They'd probably be like, I don't know. What the fuck do I care about North Korea? What are you saying? You have to be so permanently American brain to think that like all of our foreign adversaries are basically operating in unison. To make this comparison between the Houthis or Ansar Allah or Yemen and North Korea is a cowardly way of trying to argue, because you have no counter to what I have to say. That's a reach. That, like, there's a difference between Yemen, the Red Sea, okay, and also North Korea and South Korea. What are you talking about? Not every conflict has everything to do with one another. This one does. What are you talking? Dude, is South Korea Israel? Here is why it doesn't, what you're saying doesn't make sense. Because South Korea is not Israel. Israel is Israel. Yemen stopping commerce in the Red Sea is directly impacting Israel. North Korea is not a part of the like, even if the argument you're trying to make is like, well, this is the axis of evil, you're pulling a George W. Bush in 2001 axis of evil argument by trying to add North Korea onto the pile. There's a direct connection between Houthis and Israel. There is no direct connection between the Houthis, between North Korea and Israel. What are you talking about? It's so stupid.
Which the president says these attacks by the Houthis have endangered U.S. personnel, civilian mariners, and other partners, jeopardized trade.
They've been pirating commerce ship for a long time there. It didn't start this
navigation.
month. Why didn't the U.S. drop a bomb on Yemen before then? No, they've never done it to this degree. No, that's not true. Yemen has never, as far as I know, they've never had to institute a blockade or implemented a blockade this strict blockade at all. Brother, they were also directly being genocided. They were the ones who were under a blockade by Saudi Arabia and coalition forces in the region that caused the worst instance of famine. I tweeted it, but like a decade ago, my final research project was about Yemen and how the U.S. has facilitated a war against it. And my professor asked me to help him grade final papers and stay after class so we could ask me more the whole time about the conflict, because he had no idea it existed. He was a very old and progressive dude, too. Even though he cared, Americans have no clue about this shit. It's going to be ugly this week online. Yeah, but when they find out about it, they're going to... Here's how it always goes, intelligent. Okay? The Hudsons are out today, okay? The Hudsons are out in full force in the chat today. Episode's one very own Intelligent. Listen, the thing is, Americans don't really think too much about this sort of stuff, but they have like foundational principles that they base their worldview off of. And I don't mean like real moral principles. I'm talking specifically like America good, brown guy bad, that sort of thing. So what I think usually ends up happening, and I assume your professor was actually open-minded, but what usually ends up happening in a situation like this, as far as I've seen, is they go and the ones that want to chirp and like come across as intelligent in matters such as foreign policy like this, the ones that want to come across as intelligent will decide like who is America backing in this war? Is it directly something that America is doing? And then they work their way from the conclusion that America's actions are just, moral, and permissible and very good. So that's why I said, like, what a lot of people are going to do in the upcoming week is find ways in which, like, how the Houthis are wrong. He was very kind and was concerned about it, but yeah, you're 100% right. You will see people who may not even realize that they fake supported stopping the genocide in Yemen, because who was doing the genocide in Yemen? Saudi Arabia. They might not have even known that it was actually Saudi Arabia that was doing it with America's weapons, for example. Or they might have even known but forgot to put that connection in that circumstance. So you'll see people that literally go out and post stuff like, oh man, the Houthis are actually the bad guys, or maybe even try to justify the genocide that happened prior, right? In an effort to normalize the violence that the Houthis are being subjected to now. Okay, they started doing it already by talking about the average age of marriage of Yemeni girls. Oh, there you go. See, look. Like, let's be real. I'm assuming this guy was in the chat earlier when I said this already, but it started already. Look, you see, like clockwork. I told you. I didn't think it was going to happen this quickly. I thought that it was going to happen in like a week. You know what I mean? I did not realize it would be that fast. Wow, Intel Spirit, let's nuke this third world poorest country in the world. Great intel. Okay. No, my statement is their slogan doesn't matter. Okay? Their slogan is irrelevant. I don't care. Okay? What they're doing, they have directly and openly stated. They're doing this because of Israel's actions in Gaza, and the blockade that they've, hastily put together will stop when Israel stops. Okay? Their cause is just as it pertains to implementing a blockade in the Red Sea. I told you. I hope that makes sense for you.
At the beginning, that when they started firing at ships in the Bab el-Mandeb, in the Red Sea, in the crossing there, it was ships that had some sort of an even vague affiliation with Israel. But then they just started firing at any ship, even if it had nothing to do with Israel. And I think that shown to everybody that, Gaza was just an excuse for the Houthis, and that there's a much bigger picture here. And, if we can talk for a few seconds about this big picture. The war in Gaza is between Israel and Hamas.
President Hamas target said chosen was toward higher end.
Iran. We see tensions between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah is backed by Iran. We saw rocket fire from Syria towards Israel by pro-Iranian militias, and we have the Houthis who are also backed by Iran. There's a common denominator here, and this common denominator here right now sits in Tehran, eats popcorn, and enjoying the show.
And I want to bring in Jeremy Diamond, who is live in Tel Aviv for us tonight. Of course, we're the heart and center of all of this and why we are here with these strikes tonight. So, Jeremy, what are you learning about the Israeli response and I guess what their readiness is? I don't understand that from Oren's reporting that they were given a heads up. I'm sorry, Barak's reporting that they were given a heads up, that they were aware that this was going to happen.
Wait.
But nonetheless, this, of course, puts Tel Aviv, where you are, directly.
Wait, does this mean that Biden gave Israel knowledge ahead of time that this was going to happen, but not Congress? Please. Are the reports true that Congress was not informed about this? Because if that's the case, I'm going to lose my mind. These airstrikes have not been authorized by Congress. The Constitution is clear. Congress has the sole authority to authorize military involvement in overseas conflicts. Oh my God.
Launched that very significant barrage of missiles and drones at those that shipping lane in the Red Sea, prompting the United States and Britain to intercept nearly 24 of those projectiles aimed there. I think it has been clear since those attacks happened and in the wake of the warnings from the Secretary of State that there was going to be some kind of a significant U.S. response. And
Bro, is he out of his mind? This is like if Donald Trump did this, every American organ of media would be losing their minds, okay? That's nuts. There you go. Allahu Akbar, death to America, death to Israel, cursed be the Jews, victor to Islam. They have the self-awareness of cartoon villains, but they're no laughing matter. Bro, this guy should be in jail. If England was a real country, you would arrest this fucking terrorist criminal piece of shit who came back on British soil for being a genocidaire, for being an acting representative of a genocide. But because the entire island is a bunch of morally bankrupt Tory pedophiles, obviously not the good British people, I'm talking about specifically the conservatives, okay? None of the English politicians sitting in the parliament have the decency to implement at least the same scrutiny that you would have for a Muslim person that went to a Muslim country and then came back. It's disgusting. Yeah, it started. No shot. Anyone thinks the Houthis who starved an entire city and brought back slavery are good. Might as well simp for Janjaweed. Houthis starved and sieged 37,000 people in Abdia, by the way. Dude, I'm telling you, it's coming. Just wait, dude. It's coming. I'm telling you. It's going to turn into actually what Saudi Arabia was doing was good. I'm telling you. What Saudi Arabia was doing was actually good in Yemen is what it's going to turn into. Just wait. What about them works for Israel too then, Hasan? Yeah, no, totally. Congress leaders were reportedly informed by Biden, according to Huffington Post. New Biden administration has told leaders in Congress there will be U.S.-UK airstrikes in Yemen tonight per U.S. official. So what happened? Like the Ro Khannas of the world didn't hear about it? Like a couple, all the. Joe Biden only told some people in Congress, not the people he doesn't think are cool with it. Problem is, who voted for it? Yeah. How'd that work? Because they hit us first. They hit U.S. first in international waters. I feel like there's still a rules of engagement. Or I guess, yeah, there's already troops deployed. Why do you think politics happens in a vacuum? Also, why do you keep defending terrorists? I've never defended the United States of America. I have not defended the United States of America, nor the criminal state of Israel. Both the United States of America and the Israeli state are war criminals and engage in acts of terror. They are the largest state sponsors of terror. They dish it out on their own as well. I've never defended them. So how dare you come in here and tell me that I'm defending terrorists? Updates on what the Houthis are saying via Yemeni media. The Houthi TV of Al Mazira reported that the strikes targeted Al Dailami air base in the capital Sana'a, vicinity of the Hodeidah airport, and other targets in Zabid in the province of Hodeidah, Kahlan military camp in Saada. Local sources reported strikes in Taiz and Dohamar. Houthi leaders said their forces are attacking the U.S. and UK warships in the Red Sea. It also reported that the strikes hit the military airports in the Hajj province. It also it hit the Taiz airport and the 22 military camp in the province of Taiz, or no, province of Hodeidah. United States is one of the largest perpetrators of terrorism. What is the line between terrorism and warfare? Can you have war without acts of terror? No. War is terror. I guess the legality of it is that they're not actually committing new soldiers. They're not deploying new soldiers. This is just existing soldiers in the region. Right? Hamas calls cap on the Holocaust and not liking Jews is what? What is this guy saying? I do think that, like, first of all, I think that like, if you're a 4chan poll user, you should stop saying, like, no cap on a stack, stuff like that. Like, a lot of people, I've noticed, like, a lot of, like, accounts where people say, like, a lot of groypers will be like, Himmler's 1488 will be like, no cap on a stack, for real, like, you know, Goebbels had some good ideas, on God, that's a major W. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, how did this happen? How did you get, like, so groiped up with the most, like, weird internet Nazi forum shit, while also simultaneously, like, Zoomer culture is so synonymous with, like, black culture that you're just, like, perma-stuck doing AAVE in a really bad way, too. They also waited internationally until the UNSC came out yesterday condemning the Houthi attacks and saying they must be halted immediately. Russia and China abstained, which allowed it to pass. Cowardly. Yeah, no, AAVE Nazis is a real thing, Chad. It's not a joke. You might think it's a joke because it sounds so stupid, but it's real. For real, for real. Anyway. So do I have to? I can't even talk. Do I have to condemn Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis? Shit's getting exhausting. Yes. Houthi general claims to have sank a U.S. ship. Yeah, I don't know about that. The AAV is often done as a form of ridicule. No, I think originally the Nazis did it as a form of ridicule to be like, look at these black people, look at how they speak. And then because it's like everything that black people do is cool and it's culture, inevitably that they unironically started using it. I'm not even kidding. Like so many openly racist, like openly anti-black racist groypers now unironically use African American vernacular English and say stuff like bruh, lil bro is out of control, bruh. And then it's like they're like an actual Nazi. Bro, go watch any Zoomer IRL streamer on Kick. Yeah, it's like, bruh, on God. We must defend Christianity on God, bruh, for white children. On a cap. No stack. No kizzy. You're on TikTok too much? No, I'm not on TikTok at all. White people are so weird sometimes, you know? God damn it, what's up with this? Fix yourself, camera. There it is. They're moving away from Yemen. It's actually outdated to call it AAVE, says young black economist. Academics just call it AAE. There's no reason to put a V in there. It's just more white people weirdness. I mean, I don't know. The U.S. and the U.K. are now bombing Yemen so that the precious Israeli occupation regime can continue its genocide of Gaza, and the Western media and political class are cheering it on and celebrating. The same ones who demanded every nation on earth do everything for Ukraine. Yeah, like, I guess the analog is basically like, what would we do in this situation? You know what I mean? Like, America already did this against Russia to a certain degree. What Yemen is doing. But if like Estonia tried to do this to Russia, right? As Russia was like blowing up Ukraine, everyone was celebrated. Everyone be like, oh, thank God there's someone out there that's like doing the righteous thing. Do a poll of Americans tonight. Ask them if they know who the Houthis are, where they live, why we are bombing them, and whether the president has the authority under the Constitution to bomb them. Go. Yeah. 30% of GOP voters support bombing Agrabah, the city from Aladdin. Kind of ignores the attacks on international, not Israeli shipping, though. Brother, it's a blockade going up the Red Sea. Like, what do you mean? This is the same energy behind, like, I can't believe Hamas is indiscriminately throwing rockets into Israel. That's so messed up. It's like, bro, do you think they have targeted missile systems? Like, what are you talking about? America has a ton of blockades on countries that aren't at war. It's not at war with. Yeah. Are you a shipping industry lobbyist, Chatter? Do you own cargo vessels? No, he's an American who wants to defend America's new bombing campaign. And in order to defend it, he's going to say, what about all the people that are being impacted by the lack of commerce in the Red Sea? Hasan, inflation is genuinely devastating. You do not have the capacity to understand how devastating the food prices are going to look like because a lot of shipping companies have to move their routes away from the Red Sea. And then they'll turn around and say, like, and this is all the stuff that's going to the poorest nations or something. You know what I mean? Yemenis are very prideful people. So even the people in Yemen who don't support the Houthis, whom are a lot, will end up doubling down after this. Yeah. If I'm not wrong, the Houthis haven't killed anybody. No, they haven't. No, they just overtook ships. That's it. The statement from Biden on the airstrikes in Yemen, Gaza, of course, not mentioned once. Statement from President Joe Biden on coalition strikes in Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen. Today, at my direction, U.S. military, together with the United Kingdom and with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, successfully conducted strikes against a number of targets in Yemen used by Houthi rebels to endanger freedom of navigation in one of the world's most vital waterways. The strikes are in direct response to unprecedented Houthi attacks against international maritime vessels in the Red Sea, including the use of anti-ship ballistic missiles for the first time in history. These attacks have endangered U.S. personnel, civilian mariners, and our partners, jeopardized trade, and threatened freedom of navigation. So why are the Houthis doing this? Is a question I would love to ask. Like, why are they implementing a blockade? You know what I mean? Why has America killed more than they have? Because Iran said so? No, man. Not because Iran said so. Why are we equating Western imperialism to Iranian and Russian imperialism? Wait, what? You can't just meme away from the Houthis have done. They've been trying to topple the Yemeni government for 30 years, of which had normal relations in the Middle East. Why aren't we talking about Iran sponsoring Shia militant groups all over the Middle East to rise up against Sunni governments, which are much more in favor of normalization with Western powers than Israel? Not that Sunnis are innocent in killing Shiites, but this is a 1,000-year conflict that's not going to change. I'm done. I can't do this. No, I'm done. I'm done. What do you mean, dude? Normalizing with Western powers and Israel? What are we talking about? Hello? Are you familiar with Western powers in Israel and what they're doing? You have America's boot shoved so far up your ass that it's coming out of your fucking mouth when you have this conversation. You just immediately take it for granted. Like, your standard of modernity is how well they get along with two imperial powers in the region, two destabilizing forces in the region that have killed more than anyone else. That is unimaginable. I know it's taken me 11 days to yell at a chatter, but god damn, what a fucking idiotic approach to the subject, dude. That's insane. That's your standard? Wow, I can't believe how good Saudi Arabia is in the region because of how aligned they are with Western powers and Israel, even though they're doing a genocide in Yemen, or they conducted it. "11 days it took." If this is your standard of who's a good operative in the region, then yeah, you are morally righteous. Except this is an incredibly idiotic way to assess the situation. Come on, man. How else is there going to be stability? Just genocide all of them. Genocide the Middle East. Permanent third world genocide. How else will there be stability? How else? Is that what your argument is? Brother, please. I beg of you, okay? Just take a deep breath and really think about your output here, okay? You are a fucking neocon. You might fancy yourself to be a liberal, to be an intellectual, to be above that, but you are no different than a Christian fascist neocon with this way of thinking. You fucking animal. Fuck. Oh. Whoever doesn't align with the Western world deserves to get killed and deserves to get slaughtered. That's crazy. Especially when it's already happening, when what you're talking about is already happening. Want to be morally correct, question mark? Acknowledge the fact that they're all bad, and this whole my team, their team debate is garbage. There's nothing right happening in the Middle East, and the only people suffering are the actual civilians that live day-to-day in poverty. Thank you for your big brain take, dude. No, there are morally correct positions to take, okay? Two things that I always have to relitigate with an overwhelmingly American, overwhelmingly Western chat, which will never see the subjects as real humans. You only care about the civilians in the Middle East, the Muslims, whether they be Shia or Sunni, it doesn't matter. You only care about them when you can use them as a talking point against whatever foreign adversary of the United States of America or Israel, because it's an extension of United States of America's foreign policy interests. Don't come to me with this bullshit. You are no different than the Republican that says, what about our homeless veterans when talking about how immigration must stop? That's it. Two principles. Let me explain to you. Two principles that you should keep with you, coming from a person who's Turkish, okay? When you look at a situation in the Middle East, you look at what the local government is and who the Western forces are. Never align with the Western forces. An example I tell you all the time is the Turkish coup d'etat, okay? A coup occurred in Turkey. The American-backed forces in that situation was the terrorist cell of Fethullah Gulen. He still lives in the fucking Poconos, by the way, okay? The Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen had aligned with the CIA. Him and Recep Tayyip Erdogan grew up together, basically, okay? His coalition, his Islamist faction, had basically overtaken the police, the court system, schools, and every facet of government. They slaughtered a ton of Turkish people in that coup d'etat. I can't even go back to Turkey because of all of my criticisms of Erdogan, okay? And yet, I much prefer Recep Tayyip Erdogan to the American puppet. That's how it works, okay? That's it. That's it. This doesn't mean I love Recep Tayyip Erdogan. This simply means that he is better than Fethullah Gulen. That's it. You, on the other hand, living in fucking Langley, make this assessment from your perspective. So as someone who lived there, I can tell you what is what. So when I look at other countries, I look at the regional actor, whoever the regional power player is, and then I look at who is backed by the Western superpowers. And let me tell you, in almost every single case, the overwhelming majority cares about making sure that they can deal with their own problems internally, domestically. Okay? That's it. Not the Western-backed powers. That's a principle that you could take home with you. If you want to actually be moral or if you want to be smart about the way you analyze other countries, that's one basic principle that you can take home with you. All of a sudden, magically, you are above on your foreign policy analysis. You're going to be better off than 90% of people that look at the situation. That's it. That's crazy, man. I hate when people come in here and try to talk about implementing stability by the metrics of who aligns with America's interests better. Okay? That's crazy. And we're having this conversation at the eve of like America and England bombing Yemen. Also, the sectarian point falls apart when you know Hamas ain't Shia. Exactly. That's so funny that people are like, oh, dude, the sectarian conflict has been ongoing for 1,000 years. And it's like, really? That's so crazy because both the Houthis and also Iran are currently backing the Sunni movement that the rest of the Sunni leadership do not have the balls to fucking take a stand against. This is why, and I'm going to go back to my fast of rage, okay? My rage fast. I'm going to go back to it after this moment, okay? Okay? This person is completely and utterly missing the point. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Listen, the Houthis may use child soldiers to force women to be brides, but they aren't against the Western hegemony. Brother, why do you think this is a good talking point? Why? We in Afghanistan directly align with boy fuckers and allowed it to continue in Afghanistan. Do you care about boy fucking and putting an end to boy fucking? No, you don't. Shut the fuck up, okay? You don't. You don't. My point is always, it doesn't matter if they're good or bad on the same boundaries that you are trying to apply to them, okay? My point is, let the people of Yemen deal with it. But you don't want to do that. You want America to deal with it, okay? The idea that like you have the gall, the audacity to be like the women in Afghanistan, like that is the only way that we can genuinely implement stability. How stable is Afghanistan? How stable was Afghanistan when America was the world police and it was there? How stable was Iraq when America was the world police and it was there? How stable has this region been? Has it been good? There's not a single instance. There is not a single instance where, oh my God, the people of Yemen are starving and can't. Yes, the people of Yemen are starving, not because of the Saudi blockade that was implemented that caused the worst famine at the modern day and age. And it was actually the Houthis stealing the food themselves off of the people of Yemen. I know. You're right. Bro, this is literally identical to the Israeli arguments. They don't have to be good. My point is they don't have to be good. They're not good, okay? You don't have to unconditionally support these people. But you can look at a situation, okay? You would never accept this lesser of two evils excuse if the topic were an American election. That's really cute that you say that, but I literally voted for Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and will most likely vote for whoever is not Donald Trump. So shut the fuck up. No, I am an incrementalist, and I do end up voting for the lesser of two evil every time. You just are a fucking baboon who has been primed into thinking that I'm some like dumb America bad guy who literally is some like tanky Maoist third worlders or whatever the fuck someone told you. And that's why you came in here and said that. Okay, I talk about local organizing. I work with local organizers regularly. I have community leaders in this community. What have you done? You're probably alt-right 3.5 months ago in the forums, doxing your favorite e-celebrity or whatever, and now you're in here portraying yourself as a liberal because you watched a guy do a debate one time and it changed your fucking world. That's how little your convictions are. You have no convictions whatsoever. That's you lose sight of whatever you believe in like that. And to be fair, it is better for you to be an annoying American imperialist liberal. At least you're like, you know, doing gay imperialism rather than also being homophobic and transphobic. Oh. Do people like that exist for real? Yes, they comprise of like 98% of the people that are in this chat right now shitting up a storm. This is why people go, oh, America bad. Oh, that's your only take is America bad.
U.S. fighter jets were used to carry out tonight's strikes along with ships. We don't know exactly which ones yet, but we do have the name of the submarine that was used. This is a guided missile submarine called the USS Florida. Very notable that the U.S. military is telling us tonight the name of the submarine. And they, both the surface ships and the submarine, fired.
Who was boy fucking? We don't have to do. Look up pedophilia, Afghanistan, United States of America involvement. Okay, there you go. The Afghan coalition forces that we were supposedly training had major issues with pedophilia, and it was happening under our watchful eye, and the American military turned a blind eye to it. There were whistleblowers, and the American military turned a blind eye to it, like with a direct directive.
The strikes that we saw, or the attempted attacks by Yemen just 2 days ago on Tuesday, the biggest yet involving drones, ballistic and cruise missiles, was essentially the straw that broke the camel's back. There had been repeated warnings by the U.S. and others to the Houthis to essentially knock it off. We have seen the U.S. carry out responses against Iranian-backed militant groups in Iraq and Syria. We had not yet seen any kind of U.S. response against the Houthis in Yemen. And that is in large part because they do threaten this waterway. But essentially, having choked this off, the U.S. now trying to send the message to the Houthis that they need to back down. They're essentially trying to punch them in the nose, bloody them, and
yeah, no, dude. This guy's the real moral arbiter here. Calling dudes who curse Jews and kidnap women brides with a lesser of two evils. This is actually deranged. Keck W. Calling dudes. You're doing the thing I told you. I do not give a shit about their fucking politics, okay? I don't care. I don't care what their slogans are. I don't care about any of that, okay? There is one country currently conducting genocide, okay? And another country that is implementing a blockade. America is not fucking bombing Yemen because their logo has cursed the Jews on it. America is bombing Yemen because Yemen is stopping commerce from flowing through the Red Sea. And the commerce is stopping in the Red Sea specifically because Israel is conducting actions in Gaza that are akin to genocide. Stop saying my hate group is better than the other. What is your solution? Chatter, who has been in here since 2008, who I'm glad hasn't gotten a lobotomy yet, I guess. What is your solution to the situation? Because you're surely celebrating blowing up the fucking Yemeni population. It seems like you like that, so you're championing that. Don't sit here and act like you have a better solution. You can just sit there and say, oh, it's my hate group is better than the other. You have a hate group. Invade and destroy the Houthi GigaChad. Yes, you're a pathetic, sniveling little coward who recognizes that his empire is crumbling, and the only thing you can do is cope with the reality that America has done nothing for you, specifically with all of its imperial bounty, so you can think, oh, yeah, we can roll over one of the poorest countries on the fucking planet. Good. Congratulations. Congratulations, dumbass. You did it. You're still a pathetic loser who's not going to be able to fucking pay rent. Your boss is going to fuck one girlfriend that you maybe will ever be able to get, and you have no recourse whatsoever. For the rest of your life, you're going to be a fucking pathetic little pleb who goes, that's awesome. We got it, baby. We're killing the Houthis out there. It's so stupid, brother. It is so stupid. There's no way for you to ever fucking recover from this. This is how desperate white supremacist Nazis are, okay? You are behaving in the exact same way that the jawless, chinless Iowa Nazis behave. I know I can't get a job, and I don't want to examine the material conditions. Everyone has told me that as a white man, I'm supposed to be so powerful, and none of that happened, so what must be the real problem? Oh, that's right. I'm going to go dominate black people real quick. I'm going to go act like I am superior to them. I am descendant of the Nord Vikings. But you're not. You're a fucking loser. Just like that fucking Nazi is a loser. You are the exact same kind of loser. Instead of looking for some esoteric, mythical Nordic rune that you want to identify with, you have identified with being an American pig, being a capitalist warmonger. You don't even have like any kind of mythology associated with it. It is just indiscriminate bombing campaigns done for ExxonMobil, done for wealthy, powerful individuals that will consistently fuck you. They will fuck you over and over again. You have no identity, so you're grabbing on to what remains of America's industry, the military-industrial complex, and all of its output. That is so sad. Fix your life, chatter. Jesus Christ, dude. Oh. It's wild. Absolutely wild to be writing this hard for American corporations and American imperialism. It doesn't even come back to fucking help you, you idiot. We have no cohesive national identity even. We are literally a patchwork of different corporations. It's like a bunch of corporate towns put together. The only glue that holds Americans together is this like weird American identity of dominating other countries that are way poorer than we are. It's so sad. And every single time we institute our might, we go overseas and we blow their fucking bases up and we blow their weapons supplies and we're like, yeah, those guys are the bad guys. You think we're doing something good, but like when we steal their natural resources, at the end of the day, you don't even get a crumb of that. Like, what good is this entire imperial project if you can't even get health care? It's nuts. I love the notion of being like, dog, I hate the Houthis because they have child brides, which is why I want to fucking kill all the child brides with American bombs. Yeah, you know what fixes the child bride situation in Yemen? A Tomahawk missile that taxpayers paid for instead of paying for your dumbass diabetes medication, you stupid fuck. God, I hate this shit so much.
Yeah, I think if we look back to before...
By the way, it literally took like, I thought it was going to take a week. And it straight up took like 3.5 minutes for chatters to come chirping and being like, oh, dude, you don't think blowing up Yemen is good? You must be a defender of child brides. Here's the difference, by the way. No matter where that chatter is ideologically, I still want him to get health care. I still want him to get a better education. I still want him to find meaning in his life. That's the difference. I don't believe that, like, just because someone is a dumbass American Nazi, that they deserve to get killed, okay? I don't think they should be murdered. I think they should have a meaningful life and no longer have those opinions. The goal is always to try. The goal is always to try and fix the material, the underlying material conditions, so that it is way harder to just like become a Nazi out of nowhere. This is why they
involving Saudi allies like the United States and the UK seems very likely to draw them in over time. And I think to the point that General Wesley Clark was making about the boats, the way that the Houthis actually operate in the Red Sea, as well as firing drones at shipping, the ways that they try to board them, as well as trying to use helicopters, they take over small commercial fishing vessels, sort of, 50, 100-foot type vessels. And then they use those as a sort of a mothership for even smaller boats that will then go out and try to board some of these bigger commercial vessels moving through the Red Sea. So you can blind their ability to see the shipping that's coming by hitting the radar sites, which was one of the target packages today. But the actual means with which they go after the shipping is small, harder to hit, and mingles in with regular fishermen who use the regular fishing ports along the coast of Yemen. So this has a possibility to get messy. But clearly the very strong message has been sent. But I think the idea that the Houthis are going to back down and pack up and go away quickly, I don't think that's what we're going to see at this time.
General Clark, to Nick's point about these small vessels, I mean, it reminds me a little bit of sort of Somali pirates years ago. Obviously, the scale seems to be different on this, and the impact of it is so far different. So is the U.S. response so far. How difficult is it for U.S. assets to counter these kind of small boat attacks on and attempts to board international shipping?
Well, I think you've got to give the U.S. commanders the mission to do it, put the intelligence on it. We've got lots of resources in the area. We've got helicopters. We can bring in our own special forces. We can bring our ships a little bit closer if necessary. We can handle this. Now, the key is, of course, there's no guarantee you'll never have any collateral damage. Just as in the case of these strikes, we don't know exactly what the
Twitter statue, PFP son, or Ukraine and Israel flag in the Twitter name daughter. Oh my God. Nah, I'm not having kids. No. I'm throwing them in the river, dog. I'm doing a post-birth abortion, which I love doing, as you guys know.
So they're still defiant. The next time, got to be bigger, got to be bolder strike, got to be more comprehensive strike, got to take away not their will, but their capabilities to interfere with the shipping. That's the real goal here. You know, we've apologized for 2 months, saying that we don't want escalation. We don't want escalation. We've said that enough. But when it comes to it, and you have to use military force, you have to use it effectively, and that means getting the escalation dominance. So we cut off their ability.
I do know his son, yes.
We can largely do that.
This is General Wesley Clark. I do know his son. I used to work with him. And Wesley Clark ran for president. He's our woke general, guys. The wokest general of all time, talking about how, you know, this is a just bombing.
And together,
duh.
Just give us the mission and we'll.
Has there ever been a bombing? Here's a good question. Has there ever been a bombing that the American government has conducted that in real time, the American media said was not good and not just? In real time. They'll say it after, like the Kabul stuff, like they were like, oopsie, you know. (9/11)
Action from the U.S., perhaps the UK, and the countries that back this operation if this doesn't stop. And he also gives a bit more information about what exactly was targeted. UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, unmanned surface vessels. We saw one of those used to try to attack shipping, land attack cruise missiles, and coastal radar and air surveillance capabilities. So the U.S. seems going after the Houthis' ability to monitor their own skies and monitor the sea around the southern Red Sea, which was where many of their attacks have been focused on international shipping. One other statement that's worth pointing out here, Austin says, a coalition of countries committed to upholding the rules-based international order demonstrated our shared commitment to defending U.S. and international vessels and commercial vessels exercising navigational rights and freedoms from illegal and unjustifiable attacks. The reason I point that out is because normally when you see the U.S. highlighting their action in support of the international rules-based order, it is, for example, on the other side of the world in the South China Sea or the Taiwan Strait, vis-a-vis actions from China. Here, the U.S. needing to put the finger point on that and say, look, this is what we're upholding in carrying out these strikes against the Houthis in Yemen who have targeted.
I love watching Campiagn manufactured in real time, dude.
Also
it's
echoes
awesome.
language President Biden had used in
Yeah, we're
his
using
statement.
rule-based international order, and that's how we're, like, make no mistake, it's our rules. Rule-based international order means we make the rules and we give the orders, okay? So, like, for example, you were like, hey, genocide is bad, right? Let's say Ansar Allah was like, hey, the genocide of Palestinians is bad. We are going to implement a blockade in the Red Sea, okay? We say, no, genocide is good. We're going to do that. And if you try to stop the genocide in your own little way, we're going to come and blow you up.
As the United Nations. Alex Marquardt, is it clear how many U.S. assets were in the region ahead of these strikes and how many non-U.S. assets were involved?
There are a lot of U.S. assets, not just involved in trying to deter a wider conflict, but all across the region more traditionally. We are learning more about the foreign assets, the non-American assets that were also involved in this, notably those Royal Air Force jets from the Brits. We also know that they have had a destroyer out in the Red Sea as well. So what we've known in terms of this conflict, Anderson, the U.S. has actually reduced the number of U.S. forces that they initially sent out following the October 7th massacre. Initially, there was a carrier strike group, the Gerald Ford, which was already in the Eastern Mediterranean. And then the USS Eisenhower was sent out to join it. Those two carrier strike groups meant to send a very significant message to Iran and the groups that they back to not escalate the situation. The Ford has actually gone home with its strike group. There have also been hundreds of American soldiers who were sent out to the Middle East who have also gone home. But make no mistake, still a huge number of U.S. forces dedicated to this Red Sea issue, as well as the broader region. I mentioned the Eisenhower carrier strike group. So, of course, there's the aircraft carrier, the Eisenhower. There are three other ships associated with that, one cruiser and two destroyers. And then you have 4 fighter jet squadrons. You have a helicopter squadron, electronic warfare squadron. So all of those just here dealing with this threat from the Houthis in Yemen. And then more broadly, Anderson, this whole area of command, as it's known, in the Middle East falls under U.S. Central Command. The biggest base there for the U.S. Central Command is right here in Doha. And then you've got the U.S. Fifth Fleet that patrols the seas. That is based right here in Bahrain. And then, Anderson, you have thousands and thousands of U.S. troops who are all across the region, here in Saudi Arabia, here in Kuwait, here in Iraq and Jordan. So if this were to escalate, it's not like the Eisenhower is on its own dealing with the Houthis. You also have all of these U.S. forces, all of these U.S. assets at bases all across the region who are ready to respond. Again, the U.S. goal tonight was to de-escalate.
Thank you, Qatari
now, whether
dancer,
the Houthis see it that way, we don't know yet. There certainly is an expectation that there could be a response, but I would agree with General Clark. There are assets in place to deal with that response, Anderson.
General Breedlove, the Houthi deputy foreign minister just issued a statement saying in part, quote, "Our country was subjected to a massive aggressive attack by American and British ships, submarines and warplanes. And America and Britain will undoubtedly have to prepare to pay a heavy price and bear all the dire
This is de-escalation, guys.
Blame.
This is a de-escalatory bombing.
What you make of that
It's
statement,
famous.
and more importantly, what is the Houthis' ability to project power to make attacks beyond just in the shipping lanes in the Red Sea?
So, Anderson, it's a great question. You cannot dismiss their ability to wreak havoc in other places of the world. And we will have to reestablish, as several of your discussants have already mentioned tonight, we're going to have to reestablish our position to be able to block and prevent, and where required, attack those capabilities. This is much like what we have seen in Ukraine. And we are going to face some of the same problems in the South China Sea and with North Korea. These people are all connected in watching how America
dude, it's
with
the chatter
overseas. And
it's the chatter from earlier, dude.
Them. And remember that we are deterred.
Bro, this is
and
my
have
chatter.
lost the initiative in Ukraine, largely because of Mr. Putin's statements about widening the war and nuclear expansion. So what did the Houthi leader do today? He threatened us with a wider war and so forth, expecting that we might be deterred at that point. I think, again, that thankfully, this may be the first rounds of reestablishing deterrence and retaking the initiative rather than being reactive in these kind of conflicts.
Nick, what do you make of the Houthis' abilities?
I think they're somewhat of an unpredictable actor in this environment because they have seemed to act in many occasions quite irrationally. It has a rationale to them and undoubtedly has a rationale to their sponsors in Tehran. But their ability to do the unexpected, I don't think can be underestimated. For a number of years until China got with Saudi and Iran.
U.S.-UK airstrikes on Iran-backed militants in Yemen. Houthis were warned to stop attacks on commercial shipping in Red Sea.
Ago now, the Houthis were
That's
really
the longest
active
Chiron.
in firing cruise missiles into Saudi Arabia, not just short missiles over the border to port cities like Jazan, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles to the capital of Riyadh. And this was going on over a number of years. So they do have the capability to reach. They've also they've claimed to have sent drones into the UAE as well, crashing at one time into one of the airports there. So their ability to do the unexpected, I believe, cannot be underestimated, and their persistence in taking up what this support of the people of Gaza, which is new to them. It's
Another
not
angle
something
of the
they've made a big
bombings?
issue out of in the past. Yes, they've referenced it, but it's not been a big issue. Their ability to give unexpected reasons and rationale and do the unexpected can't be overlooked.
Remember, chatters, every single thing I said about Palestine was 100% correct. Many people yelled at me at the time, okay? Many people yelled at me at the time. They're like, Hasan, I can't believe you're saying this is genocide. I can't believe you're saying this is genocidal. We found out that that was the case, okay? This is also unacceptable. I'm not saying it's genocidal, but I do think it's unacceptable. And it also is senselessly escalating. The correct way, for those of you in the upcoming days that will ask, well, what would you have done? The correct way to deal with this is by stopping Israel's genocide in Gaza. Okay? I'm feeling overwhelmed by all this. Being from the MENA region, can you give us a recap of what's going on actually, and where do you think this is going? A potential war on the whole of Middle East? I don't know. Mark Ames says, U.S. waged war on Yemen for 7 years from 2015 to 2022, killed hundreds of thousands of Yemenis, and ended a humiliating defeat with the Houthis far stronger than before the war. Somehow this bombing in defense of Israel's genocide is supposed to produce better results. Ridiculous.
Draw up what the possible plans were for retaliation, and then he directed his defense secretary, Secretary Austin, to carry out this response that we are seeing right now, led by the U.S. And the U.K. So again, more.
Oh my God, I've talked about this before. If there is like an ongoing conflict, yes, I cover it. I do it. I cover it. I don't know why. I watch you for Bracken News. Like I'm not making additional speculations that the American government hasn't said so far. Anyway. Did you cover Ansar Allah's statement? This is this is from today. Okay. America and Britain made a mistake in launching the war on Yemen because they did not benefit from their previous experiences. Had it not been for Bush's foolishness in pushing Ali Saleh to attack us in Saada in 2004, the Yemeni people would not have launched the 2014 revolution that ended the rule of the American ambassador in Sana'a and expelled the Marines from it. Had it not been for the foolishness of America and Britain in pushing Saudi Arabia and the UAE to declare war on us in 2015, Yemen would not have been able to today carry out its religious, moral, and humanitarian duty in supporting Palestine. There is no doubt that America and Britain today regret their previous follies, and soon they will realize that direct aggression against Yemen was their greatest folly of their history. So the thing is, like, I mean, they do talk a big game. They do talk a big game, but honestly, they follow through on it. I mean, they're crazy. I don't think it's a distraction from the ICJ chatters. I think they've been pushing this for a while. They've been gearing up for this for a while.
يعني لو نشاهد هذا الجرائم ذي بتحدث على غزة هي نفس الجرائم ذي
They're similar to the ones here.
لو نشاهد يعني
This is Yahya Sari, spokesman of the Yemen's armed forces. Here. If we look at the crimes being committed in Gaza, this is from December 19th. They're similar to the ones that were committed against us in the past 9 years. Bombarding hospitals, they bombarded our hospitals. Bombarding markets, they bombarded our markets. Bombarding schools, they bombarded our schools. Bombarding roads, people while they're soundly sleeping in their homes. Just like it happened to us. It's the same aggressor, the same American bombs being poured on Gaza were the same ones being poured on us in Yemen. The aggressor is one. The aggressor is one. The leader of it is one. America. The one who led the aggression in Yemen is the same one who's leading it in Palestine. Majority were saying, strike Israel, we dare you. We strike them. They said, seize a ship, we dare you. We seized one and took it to our port in Hodeidah. It greatly honors us that we mobilized against the enemy, that we are confronting the Zionist enemy who's aggressing on Palestine and our homeland. We will continue to confront the American-Israeli enemy until the aggression in Gaza stops. This is a very important part. We will confront the American-Israeli enemy until the aggression on Gaza stops. As for the battle in our homeland, we are, God willing, fully prepared and ready for anything from the enemy. If Saudi and Emiratis even think of leading an aggression on us, commanded by Israel and USA, we are present and ready. They've tried us for 9 years. If they want to do it again, we're here and we're ready. As for America and Israel, if they attack our homeland, they will commit foolishness they've never committed before. The response will be fierce from the people and the armed forces. We are with our brothers in Palestine and Lebanon in facing Israel because they're our greatest enemy. We didn't say death to America with our heads turned. We are serious about it. Yeah, I mean, look, their goals are pretty clear from day one. This is like, yeah, see, Houthis are one of the most corrupt people. Their people are starving, and they decide to use all their money to stop ships. They themselves kill the Yemeni people. Palestinians are one of the most corrupt people. Hamas is one of the most corrupt institutions. They use all their money to stop Israel when they themselves are the ones who are responsible for the Palestinians dying. Copy paste. Abdul H.H. Oh, that's the other part. There's going to be a lot of Sunni regional guys in here that are going to be chirping as well. That'll be like, listen, I'm Muslim. I'm Saudi. Like, you don't understand. You'll be seeing a lot of that too.